So, what were you doing June 29th, 2004? Where were you guys at?
Was in Orange, California at the Virgin Megastore.
Okay.
Our management and the label were like, we're going to do an in-store record signing. And we were like, that's a fucking stupid idea.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Talk To Me right here on KNOTFEST.com. And the guest this week is Saller of Atreyu. We're going to do an audio autopsy all about Atreyu's The Curse that came out 20 years ago. We dive into the producer, Garth. We hit on a few tracks. We asked the question where he was June 29th, 2004. And we also find out the impact of this album on Atreyu. I will say, this interview starts about 5 or 7 minutes into where we initially started the interview. We did have some audio issues at the beginning. I was going to pull one of the camera audios, but there was a fan going on, and it was not usable. So I might throw it on the end of the audio podcast version. If you want to hear, there's a few stories about the fact that Brandon and I share a birthday. That's a strange occurrence. That doesn't happen very often on the Talk To Me podcast here. Dive into a little bit of the writing process. We did start over, so there is another intro, but we dive right into them getting a producer. The main things that you miss out on is that he talks about that they did pre-production, they had the album title, album in order, everything ready to go, and then they go on to do where we are in this interview. So without any more of my ramblings, let's talk to Saller of Atreyu. All right, guys, welcome into another episode of Talk To Me right here on KNOTFEST.com, and we're sitting down with the one and only Saller of Atreyu. Brandon, how you doing today, man?
I'm fantastic.
Awesome, man. We're going to do an audio autopsy on The Curse today, and we'll just dive right into it, man. So getting these songs together, and obviously you've demoed them up.
Yep.
You've got, everything is kind of done in pre-production. Everything's ready to go. When did good Garth come into play?
Garth came into play. I don't remember who found Garth or like whose idea it was. I know that when he came into the table, he had done like a Rage record, and it's really strange actually. Our first couple producers were very random. Like it wasn't like, I think he had just done a couple things that we were into.
Yeah, he did like the Kitty record, I think.
Yeah, but that wasn't.
Yeah, that was a weird.
But I want to say Rage was like, it was like, oh, he did a Rage Against the Machine record. And other than that, I can't remember who found Garth.
Right.
And it was just like, we're doing a record with Garth Richardson and we're going to Canada. And that was it. And like, met the dude when he picked us up from the airport.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, it was one of those things. It's crazy to look back and be like, I can pinpoint why we picked other producers. I can't think of why we picked Garth. Rage Against the Machine was a big part of it.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was just like, there was something about him. Someone in our band was like, he's the guy. And then he ended up being the guy.
So you've already demoed everything. You've got everything in pre-production.
Yes.
You said the album title in order. How much did he have in? Did he come in and say like, hey, let's try to do this. Let's try to do that?
No, I don't think so. It wasn't like he kind of took more of the approach of just kind of taking his approach to performance, his approach to production. And that was the big part of it. There wasn't a lot of restructuring. There wasn't a lot of a big part about it. I think one of his big hands was we had kicked out our previous bass player while we were tracking that record. And I think that was a big... We had already maybe not been getting along that great, and he had been separating from the band anyways, and kind of his focuses were elsewhere. But he went to go record that record, and Garth didn't like it, and so that was kind of a hand in...
Final straw.
Yeah, but I think he was just kind of more so just like a performance-based dude, and it was crazy. That record is recorded very, very strangely, looking back at it. I mean, you have one part of it that is so incredibly analog, and the drums are not recorded to a click. Like, I'm in a big drum room, and everything is just live. That's cool. All the takes are all the way through. There's not tons of like drum replacement, like sound replacement. But on the other end, you have the guitars and the bass that were recorded like literally sometimes one note at a time, where it'd be like da na 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 na, cool tune, da na 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 na, like, you know what I mean? So there's like a sterility to the guitars that is like crazy on that record because all of the guitars, a lot of the solos, a lot of everything were recorded like one note at a time. And it was funny because some of the stuff then, like after the fact, our guitar players had to be like, "Can I play that?" Just going, you know. But luckily they could. But yeah, it was really really crazy. And same with vocals too. Like Garth had never recorded really like an aggressive band like us with like metal vocals, like screaming vocals. So even at the beginning too, it was kind of like I remember Alex going to do some of his first takes and Garth being like, "Is that what he's supposed to sound like?" And we're like, "Yeah, like this is a good take. Like this is a good day. Like this ripping."
Sounded great.
And it was like, "Okay, cool. Just double checking." It was like, but he didn't, you know, it was like kind of cool though. He's like, we both just dove into the deep end and went for it. But yeah, I mean, he didn't change a ton.
It's funny diving into the record and like really deep diving into the lyrics and stuff. Because I mean, I've always loved Alex's voice because it's different.
Yeah.
But I'm not a lyric guy. Like I need to have a great lyric to pull me in kind of thing. So I was diving into these lyrics today and I was just like, Jesus Christ, man, what is he going through on this record?
He's an emotional teen, dude. Yeah. I mean, you can literally, like we were talking about Hot Topic earlier. Yeah. It's like, he was the teenage dude that worked at kind of sceney dude, punk rock dude, worked at Hot Topic, going through it with the ladies and with, you know, all the things that come along with being a youngster, you know?
Yeah, one of the reasons we're not going to do each track is because each track
there's a lot.
There's a lot, but B, it's like, well, this one's about a girl. Oh, this one's about a girl. You know what I'm saying? It gets kind of like, well, is this one? No, that's about a girl too. Like, it's just
for
like,
sure.
You know, even some of the innuendo stuff, you're like, it's probably about a girl.
I think the whole record's about a girl.
Yeah.
For the most
I was going to say, do you know if it's about one girl or is it about multiple girls?
It's mostly about one girl.
Like when you hear that stuff, you're like, I remember her.
It's mostly about one girl. Like, I mean, yeah, that there's a lot of definitely some very personal stuff on that record from him. So I would say that if it's written about a girl, it's about the same girl.
When did you have a hand in lyrics at all, or is it a lot of Alex?
Back then, no.
Yeah.
I didn't start getting into kind of contributing to the lyrics till Death Grip on Yesterday.
Okay.
And so that was really, you know, that was lyrically, this was his record.
Okay. So when he comes to you with like, I wrote it down here. Like with things like "What of My Soul," and like, I mean, some of these lyrics are why would he's like, "All right, Brandon, I'm gonna need you to sing this," and you're like,
"I'm like, are we in the times of yore?"
Right. There's some phrasing on here that's very
if there's one thing I will give Alex Varkatzas is he is a smart motherfucker.
Yeah.
That's not the only thing I'll give him, quite obviously, but one of the things is that he's very smart.
Yeah.
And he always had a really great way with words, and even if at times if it wasn't great, it was interesting and different. It was different.
Yeah.
I didn't see anyone else like referencing Anne Rice or The Cure in their lyrics. Right. You know what I mean? Like, or saying things like "What of my soul?" Like,
right.
That's some medieval ass talk.
Yeah.
That's the Queen's
Times
English.
of yore.
But like, you know what I mean? It's like, so I think back then I just didn't even think about it because at that time, in my head, as a musician, as a writer, I was a kid that was writing hardcore metal songs.
Yeah.
So like, I was about the riff and like the breakdown and like, you know, I was about that. And I think that like lyrics and melody hadn't really like crossed my mind yet. Even like I would come up with melodies for choruses and stuff, but it was just like back then it was like, here's words, make this exist into a melody that people can remember. Right. So it was just like, oh, fuck, I'm not paying attention to what I'm saying. I just have to make it sound memorable, right. You know? So I think I didn't pay as much attention back then to the lyrics.
Well, at what point when you came into the band, did they have you sing? I know you didn't sing on the early demo, but the first album you obviously did, but were you always a singer, or did you kind of come in and like, oh, by the way, I can sing also?
It was by accident, because I mean, me, Dan, and Alex started Atreyu, and then Travis came in later, and Porter's the new guy, so to speak. I think he's been in the band for 16 years or something, 17
Great
years.
Beard.
20 years almost. Yeah, great beard. The world's best, I'll say. But back then, me and Dan were in a pop punk band as well. It was fully by accident. And one day, we had a buddy that had like a 12-track recorder, and he brought it over to Dan's house. We were going to do demos. The singer of the pop punk band like got sick or couldn't do it, so he didn't come. And I had written a song. I was like, okay, cool. Like, well, I'll just record the vocal so we have it, you know. And I recorded the vocal, and back then I didn't know what I was doing, but for some reason it reminded us of Dan from Alkaline Trio, and we were like, oh, that's cool. Like, and Dan Jacobs was like, dude, you could sing. Like, we should do this in Atreyu. Like, there's not a lot of bands, because for us back then it was like maybe Poison the Well was singing a little bit. I don't think Killswitch wasn't really on our radar yet. But like as far as local bands and what we were into, not a lot of bands were mixing like hardcore metal and then like singing choruses. So I was like, why don't you just do that as well?
Right. So
it just was kind of happenstance. So we just started working in like choruses and stuff to our songs.
It was weird. It was almost like coming out of new metal. New metal would kind of do the reverse, so they would sing in the verse and then scream in the chorus.
Yeah.
And then, you know, metalcore, which you guys invented, right?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a factual statement.
Which, you know, when it started popping up, you're like, oh, they're building to a sing-along chorus. And yeah, Killswitch, you guys, everything else, man. And, you know, growing up through the new metal era, and I've always said this on the podcast too, is like, you know, hearing you guys pop up and then all the New England stuff, you know, with all the unearths and kill switches and all that stuff, man. Hearing those guitar solos again, I was just like, oh, I guess we're allowed to play guitar solos.
Yeah, for sure. Metalcore, whatever that means, definitely brought back the guitar solo.
That was great. It was great. Awesome. Another heavyweight on this song. This is mixed by Josh Wilbur, man. He's gone on to do some nice stuff.
Yeah, dude. We also, I mean, this was another like found Josh early on. I don't know how. I'd love to get an excerpt from Josh.
Yeah.
To be like, how did we? Who hit you up? How did we find you? Because people probably have better recollections than me. But yeah, it was one of those things. Same thing. It was like, Josh is a new killer in town. I want to say it might have been our old manager or something that found Josh. Mm-hmm. But same thing. Met Josh for the first day when he showed up in Canada to mix the record, and he did a phenomenal job. I still love Josh to this day. I see him every now and then around, and he's a gem. But he crushed it. He mixed the whole record in like, I think it was like a week or 10 days or something. It was like a song a day, just like crushing it out. Another fun little story. We decided to fuck with Dan because at the time, well, not at the time, he still smokes a lot of weed, but at the time he was a younger dude just smoking weed, passing out on the couch quite often in the studio. And so he was mixing Bleeding Mascara, and we took the guitar, the lead, and put it through like the shittiest amp tone ever, and then slowed it down. So it was off time and sounded horrible. And we're like, cool, let's test the mix, whatever. We come in and Dan's like, we're listening. And he kind of is like looking around at us, like no one's phasing at all. He's like, can you just play it again? Like, sure. Like, let me just play it again. It took like 2, maybe 3 listens to be like, does the guitar sound weird to anyone else? We're like, it rips, dude. Like, he fucking nailed it. Sounds so sick. He's like, it sounds like off time or something. Didn't even like mention the fact that it sounded god awful.
Right.
But yeah, that was another little Josh. Josh was like, should we fuck with Dan today? I was like, yeah, we should. We should.
Diving into some tracks here. Obviously, Bleeding Mascara. Oh, my notes just like what a way to start a record. Obviously,
sure.
the Blood Children intro, but then right into Bleeding Mascara, man. It's just, that's a banger, man.
It was a fun one. We wanted to come out swinging like real fucking hard.
Yeah.
I think we knew just the lead.
Uh-huh.
And the kind of just like pummeling drums of that song. It was like, no questions that was the intro. It's still fun to this day. I mean, that song was like me trying to be at the gates and then like going to our guitar players and being like, can you actually play this thing I'm humming in my mouth? Like, but yeah, that was like, I think a really strong moment for Dan. That was like the first time he really like kind of flexed his guitar muscles on a song. And I mean, to this day, when rips live, it's fun. Yeah.
Was Dan always encouraged to be like that shredder of a guitar player?
No. He was always a super fan of like the 80s. He's always been the dude. Like if Atreyu has a song that has 80s inspiration, The Right Side of the Bed, the blows of our catalog, that's Dan. And God love him for it. And he's got a great sense of melody in that way too. But he was always interested in like playing leads and doing solos and stuff. But I feel like it wasn't until we went on tour with like, I think it was God Forbid, and Doc or Dallas, one of the two, were doing some like Nile riff or something. It was like, oh, the guitar player at Nile taught me this as a warm-up. And it was sweep picking. And he was like, what is that? And they're like, oh, it's called sweep picking. And they like taught him how to do it. And he just sat in the dressing room on that tour like for fucking hours, just like, like learning sweep picking. And And from there, I think it was like it opened the Pandora's box of like, I can rip on guitar, I think. Like,
Nice.
and it really kind of opened the door for him to kind of turn into the more like shreddy dude of the band. Travis is equally as great of a guitar player, but he's more in the realm, he could shred, he could do all the solos, they split him up, but he's really heavily more in the realm of like effects and texture and all those things, where Dan has clean, dirty, and solo on his pedal board. You know what I mean? So it's like, he's that guy.
It's just a fire pedal.
Yes.
Is there a point on that tour where you're like, Dan, if you don't stop doing that, I'm going to break the guitar over
Yes,
your head?
and it hasn't stopped because he still does it with ukulele and acoustic guitar and saxophone and violin and all the things he learns.
Right side of the bed. Again, I've got guitar solos.
Yeah.
Also, I love the drum intro, like just the flammy drum intro you guys
Sure.
put on, man. Was there ever a point where, I mean, obviously you're just doing straight vocals now, but
Yeah.
back then, I mean, when you're doing drums and you like do a cool drum part, and you're actually like, oh, we need you to sing over that, and you're like, oh shit.
I always found that out later.
Yeah.
Where it was like, oh, that's fun to figure out how to kind of catch myself on that one. But yeah, that's every record we've ever made. ever made. They're like, damn it. But yeah, that song was, again, big Dan influence. That song originally was called The Rock Song, and it was me and Dan's pop punk band. That song was called The Rock Song, and we had it for like years. And I remember Dan first brought it to practice and was like, dude, we should just reuse this. Like, that band never went anywhere, did anything. So it's like, we should use this song. I'm still like, I love it. Just like make it heavier. I was like, all right, give it a shot. And even, I mean, the drums in the intro are so fucking 80s.
I know.
It's like Rock You Like a Hurricane style shit, you know? But yeah, shout out Scorpions.
I love the line, she'll fuck you just for the taste.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, once again, Alex, I'm like, dude.
He wasn't scared.
Okay,
Yeah, he was not scared to say what he meant.
Yeah.
For sure. But that's, to this day, a great opportunity to just grab your nuts on stage. You know what I mean?
Always.
Good crotch grab.
Yeah, any chance you can get to
Any
just grab
opportunity
some
for good. Yeah, for sure.
video for this song. Obviously, a lot of hotties in it.
Yeah, like what would go on to be famous hotties.
Yeah, I know. You got the Bella Twins, I saw.
Yeah, before they were the Bella Twins.
Right?
I think they just hired them by their name. Yeah.
Did you guys keep in touch with them later, like through there, or you watch them through their WWE career?
It was one of those things where one day I think we saw them on TV and we're like, wait a second, those the girls from our video? Yeah, they went on to do, we always joke, like, whenever there's like a crew member of ours that goes on to do like a massive band, or like, that's my wife.
Okay.
This is not some random person hanging out. Or like, something like that. We're like, oh, it's the Atreyu effect,
Right.
You work with Atreyu, you move on to do much bigger things. We're like the good luck stone, the Blarney stone. But yeah, so they were in that, and then there was like a porn star named Crystal Steele in that video,
Okay.
which I remember like came out of nowhere.
Did we
It was
talk
like,
about this with the wives around?
yeah, when she was at the video shoot. I remember it was one of those things where it was like, yo, like the homie is friends with this porn star Crystal Steele.
Yeah.
It was like, do you want her in the video? I was like, yeah, of course. Like, babes in videos are good. But it's funny because she doesn't really do anything. She just kind of like sits there and licks her lips.
Well, it's like the Bella Twins. They just stare at the camera.
They just stare at the camera. Yeah, exactly.
Just
At least they get their feet washed.
There you go.
Or don't they get is it them that get their feet washed? Yeah. Some biblical shit.
One thing about all the videos, or the two videos on this that I watched, great time capsule. Like,
Yeah.
it's so like 2004
Very much
to
of
a
the
T,
time.
and I love it.
Yeah, very much the time. I mean, the Crimson video too. That was our friend Sean Stegemeyer's friend that Porter went to college with, and he's gone on to do. He does like Audi commercials and shit now, and
Nice.
like taught the world how to do stop motion. It's like insane the things he's gone to. But he did a lot of our videos at the beginning because he was a talent and had all this like college kids that could do videos. So he'd make like a $5,000 video look like a $50,000 video. And we just like break things, and like the Crimson video is just us breaking sets that they made.
Right.
But yeah, they're very much at the time. Slow-mo. I remember like the slow-mo ramping into regular speed was like a very big thing.
Yeah.
Crimson has tons of that. So does Right Side of the Bed. Just like the way we looked, very much.
You got some swoopy hair. got
It's
some
swooped
jeans
as
on.
fuck. I had the swoopiest of swoops.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
We can actually dive into the Crimson, man. Crimson. I've got, it's either about a murder victim, cheating,
Girl.
it's a girl. It's like one of those, like, it's probably a girl.
I feel like there's only 4 songs on the record that aren't about a girl.
That was 4 more than I found.
I think I think You Eclipse by Me is one of them. It's not about a girl. But yeah, The Crimson's definitely about a girl.
Yeah, that's a wild one there.
Sure.
What do you remember about writing and recording that one?
That was another Dan riff. That little picking riff was a Dan thing. And then remember that feeling like that felt like a rock song to us. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So for us back then, I feel like that was like a different kind of thing. But yeah, I remember that was a Dan riff to start. I remember that chorus feeling really big. I remember filming that video. The drums that I played in where we're wearing the white, I had just gotten them, and they were like, "Hey, we're gonna like break everything at the end," and I was like so nervous, and I like chipped one of them. Was like really mad. And then the other drums were a friend of mine's, and I'm like, "Oh, can we borrow your drums? They're just gonna get a little bit wet," and then I like destroyed them. But that video was a very fun process as well. But that song, as far as writing it, that was like another one too. That was another Dan riff.
Core setting, I guess, is a word, but
again, this is the Queen's English.
The only notes on that, I'm like, this is 2 minutes of OMG, and Alex once again is just absolutely going through it like that.
That was the point. The point was, what if we did a song that I didn't sing?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, sure. And then from the riff, like that was me trying to be at the gates. But that song's just like we've had a few of those. We had like corseting. There's been a few more of those later in the career in our catalog too. But that's exactly what we meant it to be. Just like, especially because it came after the interlude, which was like, to me, the interlude is like an Incubus mid-record track, which doesn't make sense at all for us. But I loved Incubus. Like that was my biggest singing influence growing up was Brandon Boyd.
Okay.
So like to go from like the Incubus like smoke weed song to 2 minutes of Face Punch was like what we liked too. It's the same concept of like opening the record with Blood Children into Bleeding Mascara. It's like let them fall asleep and then wake them with Fist. You know?
Let's hit on that for a minute. The Brandon Boyd there. Obviously growing up, huge Incubus fan.
Yeah.
How are you from you know about polarizing records. So how are you from Science to Make Yourself?
See, I got in at Make Yourself.
Okay.
So for me, Science was kind of like a drop in the bucket. I obviously went back to it, but like the Incubus I fell in love with was Make Yourself Incubus, and then into whatever the next record is called, Morning View. Doesn't say what you hear, Morning View.
Right.
But those were in high school. It was like I need to learn how to sing. I'm singing in this band now. This dude seems like he does it better than everyone else. So I made a promise myself to listen to those 2 albums, and I couldn't listen to anything else until I could sing everything on the record. So that was like 8 months of my life just listening to 2 Incubus albums. That's it in my car.
No, that's. I think that's still my life.
Yeah. Still come on. They still play.
They still slay. And then we'll just hit it with the bonus track, man. You Give Love a Bad Name.
Yeah.
Who came up with the idea to record that?
That was, well, initially it was trying to get us to decide on a cover song was like fucking impossible because everyone had different ideas what they want to do. And I think, I remember Alex back in the day wanted to do Poison, the song Poison, like, and then like, I think, I want to say Dan came up with the Bon Jovi one. That it seems like Dan would come up with it.
Like a Dan thing.
If it wasn't Dan, it was probably Alex. And I know that it was Dan's idea to be like, let's just make it an Atreyu song though. Like, let's not just cover it. Let's do an Atreyu song. That's why that song was so successful, I think, because it was like a new spin on the take. Like, there's a lot of bands that have had really huge covers, and like you look at the like Killswitch doing Holy Diver and stuff. Like, it sounds like Killswitch, but it sounds like it's not that different. Mm-hmm. But we just try to kind of take it in our own direction. But that's the biggest cover song we've ever had. That people won't let us. It's really hard to like not play it, which we haven't played it in a long time. But it's like hard to. We get asked to all the time.
They're gonna come for you.
Yeah.
Every year from the Bon Jovi camp about it.
I wish.
Right.
I would love to hear from the Bon Jovi camp. Like, John, if you're watching. No, I mean, I hope that they would at least find humor in it. You know what I mean? Right. But yeah, I'm not sure if it's ever crossed their paths. We've covered multiple songs and never never like gotten feedback, you know, like even down to like we covered like a Volbeat song. We did a covers album. We did like a Volbeat track and never heard anything. We did an Aerosmith song. I heard through the grapevine. Steven Tyler heard it. Don't know if that's true.
You know that John's sitting there one day looking at royalty statements and like, what is this?
It's like, what the fuck is Atreyu?
What's this Atreyu?
Yeah.
Is that from that movie?
Yeah. If I just saw a video of John Bon Jovi just saying my band name, I'd be fine with that. That's all I need.
You can just quit at that point.
I'm good with that. Yeah.
Did you watch the documentary on?
I haven't yet.
Yeah, it's
no.
Good. It's good. It's kind of sad, but at least he does own up to the vocal issues that he's having.
Yeah.
And he should, but all the stuff that he's doing to like help correct it, like that's some rich people stuff that, like,
of course,
you know, lasers and
stem cells, whatever the fuck else. Yeah. If you got it, you know, he's not going to stop singing. Can't do that.
And now that you're in Nashville, you can go to the John Bon Jovi bar and maybe he'll be there.
Maybe he'll hang out.
Maybe he'll.
Why don't we just invite me over to your house? My wife's nice.
Right.
I'm a cool hang.
Right.
I don't get too drunk. Yeah.
Sounds good. John, if you're listening.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he watches.
Yeah.
The pod.
I mean, at least Tico Torres or something.
Yeah.
You know?
Something. Yeah. Someone's watching. Someone's watching.
So what were you doing June 29th, 2004? Where were you guys at?
Was in Orange, California at the Virgin Megastore.
Okay.
Our management and the label were like, we're going to do an in-store record signing. And we were like, that's a fucking stupid idea. Like, that's what like Britney Spears does.
Right.
And we're like, no, it's going to be cool. We're like, all right. So we're expecting to show up to the Virgin Megastore. This is our hometown, so to speak, Orange County. And we walk up, and as we're walking in, there's like people recognizing us, and we're like, this is different. And we're driving in, and we're like, man, this is fucking crazy. Like, what are all these people doing here today? There must be a movie premiere or something. Right. And then we realized that it's for our signing. And for what we thought, ignorantly, to the extent that someone won a contest, something with the record where they were going to go out to dinner with us after the signing. The signing started at like 4:00, and we scheduled dinner for 5:30. And I think the signing went to almost 10.
Oh, wow.
And we had to take like multiple breaks because like security needed breaks. And we were just like writing our names for hours and hours. And like, this is like a outdoor mall, like an outlet kind of mall.
Okay.
And it was wrapped around the entire thing. So that was our release day, which was weird. It was the first time the first and honestly one of the biggest moments that we've ever like experienced with band where it was like, wow, like there's this many people that give a shit about us. So
has to feel pretty good.
It was awesome. But that poor person that went to dinner with us, by the time they
was like
they just
Denny's
waited
or IHOP or something.
The only thing that was open was TGI Fridays in the parking lot. So we went to Fridays and just kind of got hammered, and he just sat at the table and hung out and got some free mozzie sticks, loaded potatoes or something.
Right. Yeah. R.I.P. Fridays. I think they're closing a lot of them now. So
I mean, no one's gonna miss this. It's gonna be okay.
It's funny. They closed the one here, and I was like, I didn't even know we had one here.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
Touring on this record, do you remember like what was the first big tour on this one?
Shit. What's the first big tour we did? I want to say, you know what? I think this record was when we did we toured with The Used, and then went right into tour with Taking Back Sunday. And I want to say also on this cycle, we toured with Lamb of God. And then we did Warped Tour on one portion of this. And then we did Ozfest the following summer. So the Curse Tour was fucking... We also did a headline tour. I believe that tour was with supporting, I think it was Under Oath, Darkest Hour, God Forbid. I think that was the Curse, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, I think that was it. I think. God, I'm bad. We did a lot of touring. That record cycle lasted like 2 years.
Yeah.
So I think that whole cycle had a huge part to do with where our band went kind of in the general population, because we were doing The Used and Taking Back Sunday and like horrifying little girls in the front row that were then into it.
Yeah.
But then we were doing, and Warped Tour, but then we were doing Ozfest and like metal stuff too. So it was like, we were kind of conquering both sides at the same time, which I think led us into kind of the diverse fan base we have now, even still.
Yeah, I can see that. I think, did you post, was it you that posted that you just ran into like Derek Green recently and like you hadn't seen him since Sepultura? Was that like...
Oh, yeah. I did a pod with him,
yeah.
Toby Morse's podcast. Yeah, we did our first time in Europe. This is on Suicide Notes. It was with Sepultura.
Nice.
And I hadn't seen him since then.
Wow.
Which is insane.
Good dude.
20, such a good dude.
Yeah, man, I wrote down, I think this is a great record, kind of like right there in the Suicide Notes, this one, and then Death Grip, you know, and then obviously the Game Changer with Sales, you know.
Yeah.
Like it's a pretty crazy first 4 records, honestly.
It's pretty nuts. We were talking earlier about how bands' careers, like some of the biggest bands on earth had like a 5 to 7 year run. And we're at 25 years. I mean, our first, what was that? So 20 years almost. That first 4 records was our first 12 years, not even 10 years. So it's like covered a lot of ground for sure.
Absolutely.
Steady growth, which was for sure a blessing.
It's an amazing record. I'm glad
Thank you.
Glad you got to sit down and do this. And 20 years, man, that's wild. It's even crazy for me to look back and like I said, man, those videos are time capsules.
Yeah.
I remember getting into Atreyu back in the day, and it's just it's just wild how those are the soundtracks of those time, and like immediately take you right back into those moments.
It's cool too to be a band still that has the opportunity to now like revisit them and like respect them, but at the same time like play them how we can play them 20 years later. You know what I mean? So I'm excited to do these shows at the end of the year, and it's all fun stuff.
Awesome, man. Anything else going on with the band?
When does this come out?
This will actually be out next week.
Okay.
Quick turnaround.
Before then, nothing. No, just
right now.
Playing shows, making music, and there's a million things going on.
Absolutely.
But yeah, for sure.
Cool, man. Well, Brandon, man, thanks for taking some time.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Hell yeah.